Welcome in to another edition of the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin Masseri, here on our Week 17 bye-week matchup, pre-bye week matchup, really. I mean, this is a bye for all intents and purposes. We're going to be talking about this game, what we want to see, how much we want to see these players play, what we're looking forward to in the potential matchup in Houston, or I guess a small shot in KC. So we'll be kind of, we'll end the segment, we'll end the show on that, talking about what we see going forward. If any of these injuries are kind of in our heads. I mean, there is some names here, a couple of names that we'll get into here. But hope everyone had a great Christmas and holiday season. Jason, how are you today?
I'm good. I had a great Christmas. I'm looking forward to a great New Year. And, everything gets colored through the red, white, and blue glasses of the Bills being in the playoffs for the last 2 weeks. It's certainly it's lowered my blood pressure a little bit. I think, had we not won that Pittsburgh game, I think we would go in very, very nervous into this game, even though, I think once you start looking at the matchups, once you start looking at the injury reports, once you start looking at the motivations of the Jets at this point, I think we would still feel pretty comfortable about winning this game in a meaningful game. But, we'll see what goes on here.
Yeah, and I guess we'll start there and just a little bit of injury updates. The Bills aren't looking like they're going to play Andre Roberts, their kick and punt returner, as well, which is shocking too. I guess he's actually hurt though, as well as Shaq Lawson look like the two that aren't going to go due to injury purposes. Shaq did not participate with a hamstring. Andre Roberts is with his foot. Both should be okay for the wild card game. McDermott still likes to be a little coy on that, saying that he thinks they're okay for the wild card game. Ty Nseki's back limited practice for the first time ever since his injury. So he looks like he'll be gearing toward that return of the playoffs, which they scratched him for like 6 weeks plus. So that's good. I mean, they wasted that roster spot on him. So hopefully he brings some value to the team next week as well. Mitch Morse did back-to-back full practices. So I think they're going to at least get their center. Seems he missed a lot of last week. Seeing if they can get him maybe a quarter or a half there for Mitch Morse. So look for him to play. So that's the Bills injury, fairly clean as always. Nothing really else going on there except Lorenzo's rest day. Then you got the Jets with 15 players roughly on this. Their entire offensive line's on it. Some keynotes. I'll talk about guys that didn't go full. You got Brian Poole, who was limited today. They're, cornerback. They play a lot in this defense. So, he's really getting a good amount of time. So could be good for the receivers if he doesn't go. They're also without, once again, their offensive line, Tom Compton with a calf, Alex Lewis with an ankle, Kelvin Beachum with a back and ankles. So a couple injuries there for Kelvin. So a lot of their offensive line's in trouble. I'm not sure what they're going to do here. They got Henry Anderson on a knee shoulder on a limited, Robbie Anderson with his calf. I'm assuming out of this whole list, they'll find 7 to scratch and the rest will play. It's a fairly sizable list, Jason. So you're talking about a pretty bad team already. Missing another offensive lineman or two could be in range of getting destroyed by the Bills defense based on who they play. So, we're going to start there. What's your opinion on these injuries? Do you think the Jets push this injury report? Obviously, the Bills aren't going to. They're going to sit there 2, or I guess 3 really injured players in Lawson, Nsekhe, and Roberts. So what do you think the Jets do?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets could take it a couple of ways. They could really push anybody out there that's limited and they think that can play. Certainly, they have a coach who probably still motivated to put on good performances at this point. If they just got blown out in this game, his butt's still warm in terms of everything that's gone on this season. You never know what college coach is going to pop up and say he wants to coach the Jets, and suddenly there's Adam Gase is feeling a little uncomfortable with this. So I think he does want to win the game. The draft pick doesn't change wildly. It changed a little bit, but I think it's still in the 10s, right? Like 10 to 15 range, whether they win or lose. So it's not as motivating of a factor. If they want somebody in the top 5, they're going to have to trade up either way. But they also could do the tank route and go and sit a lot of these guys, and probably why they've prepared an extra large injury report in this one in case they're like, maybe we just won't play Jamal Adams or, Robbie Anderson or whatever. But I tend to lean towards a lot of these guys on this injury report for the Jets. playing. I think the big problem for them is that they have real problems on the offensive line, on an offensive line that's already very bad. If they get if Compton or Alex Lewis or Kelvin Beachum miss this game, we're probably going to see Connor McDermott, who the Bills didn't trust for the better part of 2 seasons to even enter into a game. He's going to be one of the first guys off the bench on the offensive line, I assume, and that could be really poor for them. So I think the first thing to really look at for this game is this Jets team, is the offense even strong enough at this point, especially on the front, to drive on the Bills to score points, especially if they have limited motivation at this point. Sam Darnold might be running for his life. They're going to have trouble finding open receivers. I don't want to blow through every point here, but even with, if Robbie Anderson plays, you have a very dire tight end situation. So I think there's problems all over the field on the offense. The defense is a little more unclear for the Jets, but I think they could have a tough time, especially if the Bills play as motivated as they should. We could see some problems out of the Jets offense.
Yeah, so as an update, the Jets, I just read an article, could go up as high as 6th overall. They have a really weak strength of schedule, which helps you as a first tiebreaker in the draft pool. Right now they're 10th with a 462 strength of schedule. With a loss going to 6-10, they could hop all the way up to 6th. It's a 4-pick slot, and they could fall as much as to the 14th slot. So it's really 6 to 14. So a win could really be, so they're not going to really end in the 10. If they lose, they're going to be more 6 or 7. And if they win, they might be down that 13-14 range. So the Jason, there is like a 8-pick difference here.
Yeah, that's probably enough to change my mind about that. I mean, nobody's going to go in to lose, and certainly teams have won games that have hurt them more. But yeah, there might be a directive from ownership or from the GM or whoever. They might say, hey, you need to sit a few guys here. You can go out there and try to win the game, but Jamal Adams is pretty important to our future, and you don't want to break Demaryius Thomas's knee off here. We can just sit him for the last game. Yeah, there might be a few directives that way, whether Adam Gase fights him on it or not.
Realistic with a win. Like that's not where you want to be with this team. Sneak a 7-9 typical Bills, but sometimes the Bills still get to be in that 9-11 range. But 13-14, I mean, you're starting to get really. I really don't see the job, in my opinion, as long as Gase knows he's safe, which I don't know that. I'm not Manish Mehta. I don't know.
It's probably been told that, but
I would assume so. Especially beat the Steelers. They got their good win to knock a potential playoff team out. The Bills aren't playing for anything. To go there and just lower their draft pick status with a coach who's already saved and a fairly big injury report. I don't know. I could see the Jets resting some of these guys. I could see them not having a real offensive line. How much do you want to push Le'Veon Bell and Sam Darnold without a real offensive line? Are they going to run dives and draws and screens? Probably a lot of those. They do that anyways. So that's what I anticipate seeing. The defense really has nothing to lose. Like, there's no reason to rest too many guys on that side, especially if they get to see a bulk of Matt Barkley. There's some names on there, though. Steve McClendon's, once again, knee and a hip. Brian Poole with an ankle. So really those are the only two. Henry Anderson, knee, shoulder. Jamal Adams with an ankle. So some key names there. So which way do they go with this? I still think you'll probably see 7 of these guys sit. They won't really have any healthy scratches, in my opinion. So we're going to have to wait until inactives come out for that. But playing the Bills. So we're going to flip to the Bills. What do you want to see out of this game? So I have a plan that, I was hoping to see what the Bills said up to this date. Haven't said a lot other than players are going to play. I mean, it's pretty simple, Jason. You use this game as preseason game 3 or 2. I mean, whatever one you want. And you make these guys go through the motions and you go through the practice week. I don't think there's any real reason to sit players in practice. I think you just start to get lazy and sloppy. You need these guys to go through a game week, go through a pregame warm-up on Sunday, and you play them. You play them, in my opinion, you play them as much as you think is whatever statistics that I hope you have on injuries and as long as you can. And to me, I'd like to see Josh Allen score a point, and then you sit the guy. I don't know that you push it into if he hasn't scored deep into the second quarter, I don't know. But I'd like to see him play a third of this game. That's kind of where I'm at. A third from him. I don't play Trey White a whole lot. Shaq Lawson's going to get the sat. I think that you can rest. You have a ton of safeties on this team. You can rest a Micah Hyde, no worries. I think you see where your roster's deep, and you can rest some guys at those positions other than others. So what's your opinion on what's your plan with how do you treat this game? As you know, the Bills really haven't seen anything like this since the 90s.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're going to play guys. They are going to prepare like this is a game. I don't know if the players are going to know exactly when they're going to come out. If they're going to come out, I would guess the coaching staff has a plan for this. I would assume that as soon as this game's out of hand either way, I think that you guys will be pulled. I think there's probably a plan for Josh Allen. I don't think he gets into the second half unless they do the thing is, this isn't even the preseason. Like, we don't need to do the one drive into the second half thing. Like,
no,
let's figure out how long we have to take them in here. I agree, and maybe the plan is let's get a touchdown drive. Let's get 2 touchdown drives, and then we pull them out. I just think that anybody who's listed on the injury report, short of Zoe, and maybe even Zoe because he's old, probably shouldn't be playing at all or very limited. Maybe get Morse on the field just to get him some reps at this point.
Yep.
And I also think that it's a good point. I think they should be dressing Duke Williams. I think they should be playing Robert Foster. I think they should see what they have in case that these guys have to get into games. I would like to see TJ Yeldon on the active roster.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of guys like that could use the reps, and we have to see what we got because there really aren't that many real live situations where you get to see what guys got. Play Jaquan Johnson on some defense, play Daryl Johnson on some defense. I think that every week and every chance you have to evaluate players, you got to use it. And this is a perfect one where you could save some guys from injuries. I think about going heavy Gore, even though he's the oldest guy on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Frank Gore is one of the older guys. There's really no reason to not run him. If something happens to him, he's still there in a vet presence for Frank Gore, and you could always roll with. You could always rock with TJ Yeldon if you needed to in the playoffs. People have been asking
preseason type touches.
Yeah,
because we're going to need them, and I think that it goes the same for John Brown and Cole Beasley. So I think in general, I think they have a plan. I think their plan might even be a little more aggressive than mine is. I'd have them out of the game pretty early. I do think that there's a value to getting them to at least go through the motions of pretending that this game is real. But in the end, it would just feel so stupid if they got injured. And I know you only have to play one play to get injured, but I think if you limited those opportunities and, kept guys off the field when Henry Anderson's on the field as much as possible, I think that they would benefit from it. The weirdest thing is it is pretty unpredictable as far as how the Jets are going to take this game. I think the Bills' strategy is going to be pretty straightforward.
The Bills could adjust too, right? They could adjust based on what the Jets are doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If Josh Allen takes a late hit or something, you're out.
If they're going full go cheap defense like they've been known for lately, and the Bills noticed that trying to play for the 7 and 9 for pick 14, I think you see the Bills rest a little bit earlier than if they're just rolling out, kind of going through the motions themselves, resting, the offensive line. The Bills are able to use Daryl Johnson. And Vince, using their really the majority of their backup defensive players. I mean, I don't think.
Well, you got to remember too. This is a Greg Williams team.
Right.
You have to keep that in mind. You're playing Greg Williams, you're playing Mike Zimmer, or somebody that's just going to try to give it to you no matter what the game is. Maybe I don't see Adam Gase having too much mercy. I think he's going to try to play this game hard. It's whether the players respond, I guess, at this point. But I think that is a good point that you have to adjust to what the other team is doing because your season's important and theirs isn't. So
right. So if they're not caring, cool, you can go practice some stuff. If they're overly caring, playing this Greg Williams defense, you start to bench players real quickly, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then so with Andre Roberts out, that's going to lead to a Duke Williams activation so I guess you're going to go, let's see, you're going to look at Lorenzo. I guess he'll probably play. Shaq's not going to play, which I guess means Vincent Taylor will get to go with Corey Legit. We'll both be active, so that'll cancel each other out. Tyne-Secky's still not going to go, so that means the two back off. I think you still scratch a second offensive lineman, Jason, because you have 7 inactives.
Right.
So you're going to scratch Inseki. I think that you don't need to scratch Ike Butker again. So I think you can pick an offensive lineman you might not play, or do you just scratch Ike Butker for no reason? Like, what do you do with that offensive line? Do you, you want Mitch Morse getting some snaps? Do you sit Spain or Feliciano?
I think it might be a weird day where maybe you do play all of the offensive linemen available just because you want to sit a couple of these guys maybe after the first couple of drives after the first half. So, like a Morse probably is coming out of the game. If you want to sit Dawkins or Feliciano for a little bit, I think that's a smart play. And then maybe you look at, dressing your full array of safeties or, all of the running backs on the roster. A situation like that where I don't know. Or
do you play John Brown? Do you activate John Brown?
I think most of the starters are going to be activated. Okay. I actually said that reverse what I was thinking. I got brain mushed, but I wouldn't be shocked if there was a random set like a John Brown or one of the safeties. We just don't need to play Micah Hyde. He's a gamer. Like,
zero reason to play.
Let's play all the other safeties in this place, see what those guys got. We drafted Jaquan Johnson. We've kept Marlowe and Coleman on this team all year.
Yeah,
there's no reason to play him. It's not even like a quarterback rhythm or whatever. We're sure he's going to be fine to play next week. Like, I think that could be a decision to be made so that they have their full menu of offensive linemen to rotate when they need to.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at it, they're deep at safety. So I think I'm almost be shocked if I saw Poyer and Hyde. I don't know why they would scratch Hyde and not, or Poyer and not Hyde, but one of those guys, one of the starters is sitting down, which I'm assuming would be Hyde, or if not both. I wouldn't be shocked if they roll with Marlowe, Kurt Coleman, and Jaquan Johnson all day. And if an injury happens, I don't know, they get through it. But I wouldn't be shocked if they don't play Poyer or Hyde, because you're still going to need 7 inactives, and now we only have 3 injuries, really. So we need to find the 4 guys that aren't going to play in this. Tre'Davious White's a candidate, obviously. I don't think he needs these reps against Robbie Anderson. Maybe it's up to – they might even leave it up to him. Like, do you want these reps or not? Like, we're gonna bounce it on you. We have Kevin Johnson, Levi Wallace ready to go, Siren Neal, and Taron Johnson. I don't know. You might need to scratch someone. He's the best player on this defense and potentially this team. He might get the scratch. Defensive end, you're already missing Shaq, so you can't really do too much there. You're already, I think at the defensive line, everyone's going to go but Shaq. So, you've already had your scratch there. Linebacker, you're not deep, so that's why Lorenzo probably stays. You only have 5 linebackers. You don't really want to roll with much less than that in a game. So I think that Lorenzo goes, but I still think you have to scratch 2 of the 4 defensive back starters, and you're not going to be Wallace. So you have to scratch 2 of Poyer, Hyde, and White. To me, I think that's how you get to the numbers of that. So we'll see if that happens, Jason. So that's something to watch out for. Running back's the other weird one. To get Yeldon on the field, you got to scratch somebody. I don't know if they'll have the spot. It's not going to be Perry. Do they scratch Gore or Singletary?
I don't know. They'll probably just scratch TJ Yeldon again.
I think so before and then keep it both Gore and Singletary.
I don't know. The thing is that it's so hard to predict because we don't know what this coaching staff is like in the situation, and we haven't seen the Bills in this situation in close to 30 years. It's
right.
It's foreign to us. So yeah, I don't know whether this is more of a preseason game, but it certainly seems like A, the coaching staff isn't telling us anything about it, which we didn't expect them to. Right. But B, I think that they're the type of coaches that are going to pretend this is a game, try to do their best to hype up their players that this is a real game. They're probably going to do the classic coach speech of if you're not playing hard, you're going to get hurt. Just play your normal game and then maybe start, pulling people out systematically. That's my guess on it. The time on it is going to be weird, but, we're probably going to see it in waves. Probably see Josh come out first, honestly. Just based on roster sizes, this isn't the preseason. Like,
right.
we are going to have to we're going to have to play some guys the entire game still. I
Yeah, and
don't
I'm
think
fine
the
with the Levi
numbers work
Walls,
out.
Kevin Johnson,
Yeah.
Potentially Poyer, potentially, Kurt Coleman. He's on the roster. He started a lot in his experience. Taron Johnson, Siren Neal, Lorenzo, if he can. But I just think there's select few. So you have to have four. Okay, so sum it up. You have to have four scratched players. You have three injury players in Inseki, in Andre Roberts, and in Shaq Lawson. You got to scratch four. Are you leaning toward the typical TJ Yeldon offensive lineman, or are you going to go with? Are you thinking that they'll go
I
Micah
think they'll
Hyde?
scratch vets.
Okay.
I mean, there can always be a mix. You're not going to be able to scratch all your vets. You're not going to be
you
able
got four.
to. I think the way that the roster sets up in terms of numbers, I think that a safety is probably a pretty good shout. They're both veterans. Maybe Gore or Singletary, just because you have four running backs on the roster and one of them that hasn't played in a while that you probably want to see. You still have the tight end situation that could be anybody.
Why do you need Lee Smith? Why do you need to play Lee Smith tomorrow or on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, Lee Smith's an older dude, and also even though they're not showing up on injury reports, there could be guys with aches or whatever. Taron Johnson's always hurt.
Right.
Tyler Kroft was hurt the entire season. Those could be guys that you just want to rest and say, we got to make sure that this guy's ready for it. Just because he's on full practice every week doesn't mean, all of these guys hurt. To what level you don't know, but you could see a surprise situation like that just has more to do with the general attrition of the season than anything else. Any rookie who's played a lot this season, unfortunately, we can't sit Cody Ford, but those guys aren't used to seasons this long and this grueling. Devin Singletary.
I was just going to say that I would watch out for rookie scratches just because of the way that what they've been trained for. I don't think sitting Dawson Knox or Tommy Sweeney is out of the question.
Yeah. I mean, but Tommy Sweeney hasn't played all season. But certainly Dawson Knox, maybe Singletary got to miss a chunk of the season. But again, if he's nursing any sort of thing, or if they're just like, we can't win without this guy, which, I think the offense started to perform better once he came into the fold. You could see that too. I mean, I know we're not coming up with a ton of, concrete answers, but we'd be pretty stupid to think that we have the answers in this one because it could be anybody, So I think it is good to go through what the situations are and why they might sit certain guys.
I'm going to go through the four I think that aren't, as well as the three injuries. So you already have a receiver sitting. You're probably safe. If anything, if they wanted to bench Brown, you could potentially see that. There is room to sit him. He's worthy of it. And then you just really see a Duke Williams, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie game with Cole Beasley playing first third of the game. So might see a lot of Williams, McKenzie, and Foster and three receiver sets in this. So potentially John Brown's a wild card to me. You already know Roberts is sitting. I still don't think you still have to scratch four guys unless they know they're going to do a wholesale sub out three guys. I still think you sit two offensive linemen. One's already in Inseki. And I could see them going off the cuff with one of those guards, seeing as they're pretty deep at guard. I could see them sitting Feliciano or Spain based on injuries, like you mentioned. So that's my prediction, that they might sit someone like Feliciano. He got banged up last week. So I think a Feliciano scratch or Andre Roberts scratch is in the cards. I think you sit a tight end. It could be, like you said, Croft. It could be Knox. It could be Smith. But I think you see Tommy Sweeney, and they only need three tight ends. So I think one of those, I think it's going to be, I think that you'll see a Lee Smith scratch, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Dawson Knox name pop up. Neither quarterbacks, running backs, you might go with four, but wouldn't shock me to see Singletary's name come up on that for reasons we said already. So, I mean, I'm already at three. And then a fourth, I'm going with Micah Hyde not playing. And if so, then a Trey White. So I think one or the other won't be playing, and potentially even both if you do want to keep all four of those running backs active. I think you could see both. I think they have the depth to scratch Hyde and White and go with a Kevin Johnson, Siren Neal, Taron Johnson type of situation all game. And they still have those four safeties. So that's my prediction. They could go with a normal lineup. They could sit Vincent Taylor. They could sit Ike Boettger. They could sit Tommy Sweeney and TJ Yeldon. I don't see it. That's what I'm thinking, Jason. You have 7 inactives to save. You have 3 injuries. I think you scratch 4 of your better players, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we haven't been in this situation. I mean, they could have guys active that are starters that they don't decide not to play either.
Right.
It doesn't have to just be 7. If they scratch their guys and say, we're really not playing Trey White unless he needs to come into the situation, I think that puts them in an awkward situation to come into the game later in the game. But you don't really know if they want to sit more than 7 guys, including the injuries. That's something they could do.
If they're going
to
sit for extended times, you scratch them. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's I'm just trying to attack this at all angles. We're not used to this, but I think most of the situations we're going to see are going to be guys playing the first quarter, playing the first few drives, even playing up to halftime, and then seeing pretty big changes coming after that.
Do you know what's the final point on this topic is that the tricky part of this is that you don't have 90 men like you do in the preseason.
Right.
So you can't just play a quarter. You can have a couple of guys. That's why I think you need to have Yeldon active. You need to have Tommy Sweeney's active. You need to obviously have Duke Williams active, Jaquan Johnson's and Dean Marlowe's active, because you're getting into know, and don't forget special teams still exists even in this game. You're in a spot where Trey White, you can't have too many players play the first quarter, sit out for 2 quarters, and then you see a Levi Wallace injury, and then all of a sudden you have Trey White trotting back on in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I just think that
I mean, you'd have to do it. That's the unfortunate part of the rosters. But, I mean, I think we're going to be able to avoid a little bit of it. I think the safeties that play will probably play the entire game or pretty close to it. I don't think they're going to make any changes as linebacker goes for the most part. I think those guys are going to play. The defensive line rotation is going to work pretty much exactly how it is. The change would be, we do a little more, Vincent Taylor and a little less at Oliver, but I think there's still going to be a rotation of every player that's dressed at that point.
Yeah, and obviously no Shaq Lawson, so you're going to get Dale Johnson's going to go from 5% of snaps to probably 35 or 40.
But yeah, it would be about the rotation that you would see with an injured Shaq Lawson. So, I think that stuff's going to be normal. I mean, I think that the guys that are going to be sitting are going to be guys that are the special players. And I don't think Trey White will make it to the end of the game. I think they'll probably play him. John Brown's, whatever. They're going to watch out for those guys. If Singletary's playing till the end of the game, just shoot me. That shouldn't be happening at all.
My scratches are, if I was to just pick my 4, what I would do, not what I think Sean McDermott's going to do. It's John Brown. I'm sitting him. I don't think you can get anything out of playing him except an injury. So I'm sitting John Brown. I am probably sitting Frank Gore because he doesn't need these game reps. You play Singletary for a little while, then you just go to Yeldon. If anything happens, you go to Sonoris Perry. I don't care. So that's what I do. So I sit Frank Gore. I sit Lee Smith. I sit John Brown. I sit Micah Hyde. That's what I do. Those are my 4. And if you want Frank Gore, you can sit Trey White or you can sit someone else. But that's what I do. I think pretty rock solid. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm not even close to what Sean McDermott's thinking. If you see TJ Yeldon and Tommy Sweeney's name on the inactive reports, let's just hold our breath for 4 quarters, please, because that means that the team's pretty much going to play it straight up. Because if you're going to rest 4 healthy scratches that aren't normal starters, you're going to get a lot of starter time. Besides Josh Allen, you might get a lot of starter time everywhere else. Everyone focused on Josh Allen. I think he's only going to play a third. Wouldn't be shocked at a quarter, wouldn't be shocked at a half, but I'm guessing a third. So that's what and like you said, the first shot he takes, he's out of the game.
For sure.
So that's the way this thing's going to roll. Team's very healthy, Jay. So kind of transitioning here to our final piece. Going into the playoffs, the team's really healthy. They're going to be healthy across the board other than really Harrison Phillips and Adrian Waddell, who got hurt, both really early. Really your swing tackle and, your run stopping defensive tackle, third defensive tackle. Other than that, I mean, you're going into week 18 with an incredibly healthy, full strength team, especially with looks like Nsekhe and Lawson back next week. I mean, it's all you could ask for in this thing. And the last thing you can do in this game against the Jets is add a name to that. So that's why this is such an important topic. But what are you feeling now that the team is pretty healthy? You have pretty much every piece at your disposal coming up against most likely the Texans and healthy J.J. Watt. So what are your feelings as you enter week 18 post this Jets, hold your breath game?
I feel pretty good. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because, we have this last game to play, so you don't know what's going to come out of that. But, Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot better than 2 years ago against Jacksonville.
Yep.
This team's much better. They're healthier. They have played well. I think the offense has taken steps, even though they've taken steps back. They've played their hardest stretch of the schedule this year at the end of the season. We all knew that was going to happen. We probably got lucky to, with a team that wasn't quite ready for the season, get to start out with the Jets and the Giants and the Bengals and et cetera. I would have rather it start out that way than the reverse, like the Jets are getting right now, where they were already out of the playoffs by the time they got their quarterback back. I mean, have you seen this Jets schedule? I mean,
In what way?
the last 10 games are Jaguars, Dolphins, Giants, Redskins, Raiders, Bengals, Dolphins, Ravens, Steelers, Bills. Like, they played like the top 10 picks basically for like 7 straight weeks. And they, kind of 50-50'd it. It's the only reason that they're going to go 7-9, but they're a team that still lost to the Dolphins the first time. They lost to the Bengals pretty well, had to play close games against the Jets or against the Giants. They lost to the Jaguars.
The Redskins too, right? Did they lose to the Redskins?
No, they beat the Redskins pretty decently, but
Who were the two 0-7 teams they lost to? They lost to the Bengals and who?
The Dolphins.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you can go back and say, they scored 21 points against the Ravens. I don't think that's much of a consolation. They beat the Steelers, who clearly aren't particularly good. They've really needed this schedule just to get back to the point where they might be able to go 7-9. And
Jeff Fisher football?
Yeah, I mean, they're aiming for it. I hope they don't get there. I hope it's Jets football and they're 6-10. But yeah, I anyways, about the Bills, I feel good about it. This isn't the team, next year's supposed to be the team. We're going to have a lot of the same team coming back with a lot of room.
Yep.
All of our draft picks with, a really great receiver class coming in, a historically great receiver class for a team that probably needs a number 1 or number 2 receiver pretty badly. I think that would improve the team a lot. And so, I feel really optimistic about this team. I think that it's a successful season no matter what we do in the playoffs, but I think that we have a really good shot of winning 1 game. 2 games would probably be a dream at this point, but I think that this team's good enough to hang with anybody. And with that Patriots game, I was a bar at that game because I'm not a cable owner. I was with a lot of people that really were really disappointed about the game against the Patriots, and I understand why. Nobody wants to lose to the Patriots. They gave us a lot of hope in that game, but I came out of that game just thinking, all right, we hung with this team twice. Like, we're going to play that team again, and I'm going to think that we have a chance to win. And I wouldn't say that every year. And I think it gave me a lot of hope the way we played against all these good teams. And, nobody really just stomped us out like those years where the Saints beat us by 40 and the naked guy ran on the field, or, we'd have consecutive games the way we started against Baltimore last year. Team plays hard, and I think they're going to be in any game that we're in,
Got inappropriate objects flying on the field. And
yeah, I think there's bad matchups or less good matchups, but I don't think there's anybody that I would completely count us out. I'd be pretty disappointed to play Baltimore again, but
it's going to happen. Yeah, it's
unfortunate. But I think Houston's really lines up to be a very winnable game for us, and I think they have a lot of issues that I think that we can take advantage of. I think they have a top quarterback that we've proven that we can at least hang with those type of guys. I feel a lot better than 2 years ago. This feels like a real team, not a top 5 team, but a real playoff team that deserves to be there and has deserved to be there for a couple weeks now. And I just feel good about it. I feel like, we should all be happy about this. We all suffered through this for varying amounts of times, but most of these people who listen to the podcast and follow on Twitter and follow the news and whatever have went through every single year of the drought and went through all the just terrible quarterbacks and terrible roster building and, comatose coaches and anti-comatose coaches who sucked, like Rex Ryan. and we have something here together, and it feels like we're here and we're here to stay for a little bit, and that's cool. It's you even saw with Jacksonville 2 years ago with a team that was pretty stacked on the roster, but that team felt so volatile because they had a quarterback that was worse than ours. They had players that didn't want to be there even at that time. This feels like a real promising unit, and all I want is one win this year, but I'm beaming with optimism at this point.
Good. I mean, and we'll leave you with a final nugget into this game. We'll pick the game here at the end, but we'll leave you with a final nugget. The Texans started the season losing to the Saints by 2. Fine. Barely snuck out a Jacksonville win by 1. Gardner Minshew kept him as a first-time starter into that game. Houston really struggled. They then went and barely beat the Chargers by 7, lost to the Kyle Allen Panthers, beat the bad Falcons, did have a nice win against KC without Mahomes, went and lost to Indianapolis, beat Oakland by 3, beat Jacksonville pretty handedly this time. Then they went and got crushed by Baltimore at Baltimore, barely beat the Colts by 3. Then they went and beat New England. They're probably their only pretty good win at home, though, by 6. They beat them. Then they went and got trounced by Denver, came back a little bit late to make that score better, but really got trounced by Denver at home. Then they went and snuck by Tennessee in Week 15 and took another 4 or 5 Jameis Winston's picks last week on Saturday afternoon football to win by 3 in a drive where Tampa was driving at the end. So nothing impressive there. They struggle when their receivers aren't all healthy, and it might be the case that too when Stills, Fuller, and Hopkins aren't all eligible to play, they start to struggle. Their offense is borderline top 10. They're 11th in pretty much every category. So it's definitely beatable, and their defense is just, without J.J. Watt, has been poor. They're allowing the 28th most yards, 18th most points, 30th most passing yards, 20th most rushing yards. It changes a little bit with Watt back, but I always don't mind playing players right off of injury, off of a major pec injury. So we'll see in a couple of weeks. He's probably going to be back in full strength, but we'll see what happens in this, Jason. So there's a lot to look forward to play this Houston team. Hopefully it doesn't flip on my head and they go and blow it to Tennessee and they go and beat Tennessee and then have KC blow it in a lowly matchup themselves in their division game. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's Houston. I think it's a good matchup. I think they played them well last year with half the roster they have this year, being 20th and beyond in most defensive categories and fringe. They haven't been super duper on offense. The team's a Watson injury away from really being bad. So we'll see what happens. Carlos Hyde, running back, who never scares me. I know he doesn't scare you.
No.
So lots to look forward to, and we will preview that matchup. As always, this show is presented by Cover One. Get out there, premium subscription. Just had a fantasy season wrap up. All 3 leagues of 12 teams are playing for the finals this week in Week 17. The best team from each league is playing in that thing for the grand champion of Cover One. Win a premium subscription for the year and a bunch of cool stuff. So get out there and check that out, and all the premium subscriptions. Really, really good content. Final note, Jason. What do you got in this game and why? What's your score prediction?
I think that it's going to be a pretty comfortable win, and I think we're going to get out of the game, and I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming blowout, but I don't think it's going to be anything that worries us. I think a nice solid 27-10. We're up 14-0 when the starters come out. We pound the ball. We make them lose a little bit of will to play. It doesn't certainly seem like this team is going to be super rah-rah about keeping Adam Gase's job or playing good for him. And I think we're going to get out feeling pretty decent. Nothing spectacular, but just it'd be a great way to get to 11-5. And I love sweeping the Jets.
Yeah,
we don't do it all the time. We do it more than any other AFC East team, but love to sweep the Jets.
Yeah, well, I think it matters to this team and a competitive Sean McDermott. I think the Bills win 21-17. I think, Matt Barkley's done what he's done against them. And last year, I've seen Manish Mehta post Sam Darnold being successful in Buffalo on that roll around play, or he threw it to Robbie Anderson over Trey White, like whatever. That roster wasn't as good. But equally so, Matt Barkley absolutely torched the Jets. I think that he's a pretty solid backup quarterback. I have him in the top third of backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He's been preparing all year. I think he's going to want to go out there and show that, when my contract's up at the end of next year, I might be looking for more. I'm ready. I think he's going to want to, assert himself as a good quarterback who has some stuff to play. I think Matt Barkley has as much to play for as anyone. That's my take. I think the Bills win this one 21-13. I don't think they press it too hard. But Matt Barkley is going to win this thing for the Bills. I think he's going to be pretty good for his 2.5 quarters, 2 quarters in this game. They're not going to, when the team doesn't, they're not going to sit there and double the game plan in this thing, I don't think. So either Josh Allen's going to go in there and really, heads blazing, play really well, or he's going to just muddle through the motions and Matt Barkley's going to go in and do something, Jason. So I have 21-13, Buffalo winning this thing, sweeping the Jets. 11-5 is a big deal. Going in with a win's a big deal. All this stuff matters to the Bills. And I can't say that going from potentially 6 or 7 to pick 13 or 14 is going to be that motivational if Adam Gase knows he's keeping his job. So that's the score predictions. Brought to you here by the Kevin and Jason Show. Really action-packed edition here, even for our, quote-unquote bye week. And I hope the Bills do rest and relax with this holiday season and do get some time to rehab some injuries. So we're looking forward to coming at you next week live with our shows. Hopefully, I'm working on a solution here that brings us live. So got some things in the works, and no better week to roll it out than playoff week 18 next week against the Houston Texans or Kansas City Chiefs, most likely Texans. But from the Kevin and Jason Show, I'm Kevin. That's Jason.
Thanks, guys.